Chapter 20, in which a jinn's life is found and then hidden. 10 minutes later, Abdullah said, "There, most eminent and intelligent persons, are our plans laid. It only remains for the genie." Purple smoke poured from the bottle and trailed in agitated waves along the marble floor. "You do not use me!" cried the genie. "I said toads, and I mean toads. Hazrael put me in this bottle, don't you understand? If I do anything against him, he'll put me somewhere even worse." Sophie looked up and frowned at the smoke. "There really is a genie. But I merely require your powers of divination to tell me where Hazrael's life is hidden," Abdullah explained. "I am not asking for a wish." "No!" howled the mauve smoke. Flower in the Night picked the bottle up and balanced it on her knee. Smoke flowed downward in puffs and seemed to try to seep into the cracks in the marble floor. "It stands to reason," Flower in the Night said, "that since every man we asked to help has had his price, then the genie has his price also. It must be a male characteristic. Genie, if you agree to help Abdullah in this, I will promise you what logic assures me is the correct reward." Grudgingly, the mauve smoke began to seep backward toward the bottle again. "Oh, very well," said the genie. 2 minutes after this, the charmed curtain in the doorway to the princess's room was swept aside, and everyone streamed out into the great hall, clamoring for Dalzel's attention and dragging Abdullah in their midst, a helpless prisoner. "Dalzel! Dalzel!" clamored the 30 princesses. "Is this the way you guard us? You ought to be ashamed of yourself." Dalzel looked up. He was leaning over the side of his great throne to play chess with Hazrael. He blanched a bit at what he saw and signed to his brother to remove the chess set. Fortunately, the crowd of princesses was too thick for him to notice Sophie and the Yarin of Yam huddled in the midst of it, though his lovely eyes did fall on Jamal and narrow with astonishment. "What is it now?" he said. "A man in our room!" screamed the princesses. "A terrible, awful man!" "What man?" trumpeted Dalzel. "What man would dare?" "This one!" shrieked the princesses. Abdullah was dragged forward between Princess Beatrice and the Princess of Alberia, most shamefully clothed in almost nothing but the hooped petticoat that had hung behind the curtain. This petticoat was an essential part of the plan. 2 of the things underneath it were the genie's bottle and the magic carpet. Abdullah was glad he had taken these precautions when Dalzel glared at him. He had not known before that a jinn's eyes could actually flame. Dalzel's eyes were like 2 bluish furnaces. Hazrael's behavior made Abdullah even more uncomfortable. A mean grin spread over Hazrael's huge features, and he said, "Ah, you again." Then he folded his great arms and looked very sarcastic indeed. "How did this fellow get in here?" Dalzel demanded in his trumpet voice. Before anyone could answer, Flower in the Night performed her part in the plan by bursting out from among the other princesses and throwing herself gracefully down on the steps of the throne. "Have mercy, great Jinn!" she cried out. "He only came to rescue me." Dalzel laughed contemptuously. "Then the fellow's a fool. I shall throw him straight back to the earth." "Do that, great Jinn, and I shall never leave you in peace," Flower in the Night declared. She was not acting. She really meant it. Dalzel knew she did. A shiver ran through his narrow, pale body, and his gold-taloned fingers gripped the arms of the throne. But his eyes still flamed with rage. "I shall do what I want," he trumpeted. "Then desire to be merciful," cried Flower in the Night. "Give him at least a chance." "Be quiet, woman," trumpeted Dalzel. "I haven't decided yet. I want to know how he managed to get in here first."
"Disguised as the cook's dog, of course,"
said Princess Beatrice.
"and quite naked when he turned into a man,"
said the Princess of Alberia.
"Shocking business,"
said Princess Beatrice.
"We had to put him in the Paragon's petticoat."
"Bring him closer," commanded Dalzell. Princess Beatrice and her assistant lugged Abdullah towards the steps of the throne, Abdullah walking with little mincing steps that he hoped the jinns would put down to the petticoat. The reason, in fact, was that the third thing under the petticoat was Jamal's dog. It was gripped rather firmly between Abdullah's knees in case it escaped. This part of the plan made it necessary to be -1 dog, and none of the princesses had trusted Dalzell not to send Hazrael looking for it and prove that everyone was lying. Dalzell glared down at Abdullah, and Abdullah hoped very much that Dalzell truly had almost no powers of his own. Hazrael had called his brother weak, but it occurred to Abdullah that even a weak jinn was several times stronger than a man.
"You came here as a dog?"
Dalzell trumpeted.
"How?" "By magic, great jinn,"
Abdullah said. He had intended to make a detailed explanation at this point, but under the Paragon's petticoat, a hidden struggle was developing. Jamal's dog turned out to hate jinns even more than it hated most of the human race. It wanted to go for Dalzell.
"I disguised myself as the dog of your cook,"
Abdullah began to explain. At this point, Jamal's dog became so eager to go for Dalzell that Abdullah was afraid it would get loose. He was forced to grip his knees together tighter yet. The dog's response was a huge snarling growl.
"Your pardon,"
panted Abdullah. Sweat was standing on his brow.
"I am still so much of a dog that I cannot refrain from growling from time to time."
Flower in the Night recognized that Abdullah was having a problem and burst into lamentations.
"Oh, most noble prince, to suffer the shape of a dog for my sake! Spare him, noble jinn! Spare him!"
"Be quiet, woman," said Dalzell. "Where is that cook? Bring him forward." Jamal was dragged forward by the Princess of Fakton and the heiress of Theak, wringing his hands and cringing.
"Honor, Jinn, it was nothing to do with me, I swear,"
Jamal wailed.
"Do not hurt me. I never knew that he was not a real dog."
Abdullah could have sworn that Jamal was in a state of true terror. Maybe he was, but he had the presence of mind, all the same, to pat Abdullah on the head.
"Nice dog,"
he said.
"Good fellow."
After that, he fell down and groveled on the steps of the throne in the manner of Zanzib.
"I am innocent, great one,"
he blubbered.
"Innocent! Harm me not!"
The dog was soothed by its master's voice. Its growl stopped. Abdullah was able to relax his knees a little.
"I am innocent too, O collector of royal maidens,"
he said.
"I came only to rescue the one I love. You must surely feel kindly toward my devotion, since you love so many princesses yourself."
Dalzell rubbed his chin in a perplexed way.
"Love,"
he said.
"No, I can't say I understand love.
I can't understand how anything could make someone put himself in your position, mortal." Hazrael, squatting vast and dark beside the throne, grinned more meanly than ever.
"What do you want me to do with the creature, brother?"
he rumbled.
"Roast him, extract his soul, and make it part of the floor. Take him apart." "No, no! Be merciful, great Dalzell!"
Flower in the Night promptly cried out.
"Give him at least a chance! If you do, I will never ask you questions, or complain, or lecture you again. I will be meek and polite."
Dalzell grasped his chin again and looked uncertain. Abdullah felt much relieved. Dalzell was indeed a weak jinn. Weak in character, anyway.
"If I were to give him a chance,"
he began.
"If you'll take my advice, brother,"
Azrael cut in.
"you won't. He's tricky, this one."
At this, Flower in the Night raised another great wail and beat her breast. Abdullah cried out through the noise.
Let me try to guess where you hid your brother's life, great Dalzell. If I fail to guess, kill me. If I guess right, let me depart in peace.
This amused Dalzell highly. His mouth opened, showing pointed silvery teeth, and his laughter rang around the cloudy hall like a fanfare of trumpets. But you'll never guess, little mortal, he said as he laughed. Then, as the princesses had repeatedly assured Abdullah, Dalzell was unable to resist giving hints.
I've hidden that life so cleverly, he said gleefully, that you can look at it and not see it. Azrael can't see it, and he is a jinn. So what hope have you? But I think for the fun of it, I will give you 3 guesses before I kill you. Guess away. Where have I hidden my brother's life?
Abdullah shot a swift look at Hazrael in case Hazrael decided to interfere. But Hazrael was simply squatting there, looking inscrutable. So far, the plan was succeeding. It was in Hazrael's interest not to interfere. Abdullah had been counting on that. He took a firmer grip on the dog with his knee and hitched at the paragon's petticoat while he pretended to think. What he was really doing was jogging the genie bottle.
For my first guess, great Jinn,
he said, and stared at the floor as if the green periphery might inspire him.
Would the genie go back on his word?
For one scared and miserable moment, Abdullah thought the genie had let him down as usual, and that he was going to have to risk guessing on his own.
Then, to his great relief,
he saw a tiny tendril of purple smoke creep out from under the paragon's petticoat, where it lay still and watchful, beside Abdullah's bare foot.
My first guess is that you hid Hazrael's life on the moon,
Abdullah said. Dalzell laughed delightedly.
Wrong! He would have found it there. No, it's much more obvious than that, and much less obvious. Consider the game of Hunt the Slipper, mortal.
This told Abdullah that Hazrael's life was here in the castle, as most of the princesses had thought it was. He made a great show of thinking hard.
My second guess is that you gave it to one of the guardian angels to keep,
he said.
Wrong again,
said Dalzell, more delighted than ever.
The angels would have given it back straight away. It's much cleverer than that, little mortal. You'll never guess. It's amazing how no one can see what's under his own nose.
At this, in a burst of inspiration, Abdullah was sure he knew where Hazrael's life really was. Flower in the Night loved him. He was still walking on air. His mind was inspired, and he knew. But he was mortally afraid of making a mistake. When the time shortly came when he had to take hold of Hazrael's life himself, he knew he would have to go straight to it because Dalzell would give him no second chance. That was why he needed the genie to confirm his guess. The tendril of smoke was still lying there, near invisible, and if Abdullah had guessed, surely the genie knew too. Abdullah said. The tendril of smoke crept noiselessly back inside the paragon's petticoat and bellied up inside, where it must have tickled the nose of Jamal's dog. The dog sneezed.
Shoo!
Cried Abdullah, and almost drowned the thread of the genie's voice, whispering, It's the ring in Hazrael's nose. Said Abdullah, and pretended to guess wrong. This was where his plan was distinctly risky.
Your brother's life is one of your teeth, great Dalzell.
Wrong! Trumpeted Dalzell.
Hazrael,
roast him!
Spare him!
Wailed Flower in the Night as Hazrael, with disgust and disappointment written all over him, began to get up. The princesses were ready for this moment. 10 royal hands instantly pushed Princess Valeria out of the crowd to the steps of the throne.
I want my doggy!
Valeria announced. This was her big moment. As Sophie had pointed out to her, she had found 30 new aunties and 3 new uncles, and all of them had begged her to scream as hard as she could. No one had ever wanted her to scream before. In addition, all the new aunties had promised her a box of sweets if she made this a really good tantrum. 30 boxes. It was worth the best she could do. She made her mouth square. She expanded her chest. She gave it everything she had.
I want my doggy! I don't want Abdullah! I want my doggy back!
She hurled herself at the throne steps, flung over Jamal, threw herself into her feet again, and flung herself at the throne. Dalzell hastily jumped onto the throne seat to get out of her way.
Give me my doggy!
Valeria bellowed. At the same moment, the tiny princess of Safan gave Morgan a shrewd nip, just in the right place. Morgan had been asleep in her tiny arms, dreaming he was a kitten again. He woke with a jump and found he was still a helpless baby. His fury knew no bounds. He opened his mouth and he roared. His feet pedaled with anger. His hands pumped, and his roars were so lusty that had it been a competition between himself and Valeria, Morgan might have won. As it was, the noise was unspeakable. The echoes in the hall picked it up, doubled the screams, and rolled it all back at the throne.
Echo at those gins,
Sophie was saying in her conversational magical way.
Don't just double it, treble it.
The hall was a madhouse. Both djinns clapped their hands over their pointed ears. Dalzell hooted.
Stop it! Stop them! Where did that baby come from?
To which Hasrael howled, Women have babies, fool of a djinn! What did you expect?
I want my doggy back!
Stated Valeria, beating the seat of the throne with her fists. Dalzell's trumpet voice fought to be heard.
Give her a doggy, Hasrael, or I'll kill you!
At this stage in Abdullah's plans, he had confidently expected, if he had not been killed by then, to be turned into a dog. It was what he had been leading up to. This, he had calculated, would also have released Jamal's dog. He had counted on the side of not one dog, but 2, dashing from beneath the Paragon's petticoat to add to the confusion. But Hasrael was as distracted by the screams, and the triple echoes of screams, as his brother was. He turned this way and that, clutching his ears and yelling with pain. The picture of a djinn at his wits' end. Finally, he folded his great wings and became a dog himself. He was a very huge dog, something between a donkey and a bulldog, brown and gray in patches, with a golden ring in his snub nose. This huge dog put its gigantic forepaws on the arm of the throne and stretched an enormous, slavering tongue out towards Valeria's face. Hasrael was trying to seem friendly, but at the sight of something so big and so ugly, Valeria, not unnaturally, screamed harder than ever. The noise frightened Morgan. He screamed harder, too. Abdullah had a moment when he was quite at a loss what to do, and then another moment when he was sure no one would hear him shout. "Soldier!" he roared. "Hold Hasrael! Someone hold Dalzell!" Luckily, the soldier was alert. He was good at that. The Yareen of Yam vanished in a flurry of old clothes, and the soldier leaped up the steps of the throne. Sophie rushed after him, beckoning to the princesses. She threw her arms around Dalzell's slender white knees, while the soldier wrapped his brawny arms around the neck of the dog. The princesses stampeded up the steps behind them, and most of them threw themselves on Dalzell too, with the air of princesses badly in need of revenge. All except Princess Beatrice, who dragged Valeria out of the brawl and began the difficult task of shutting her up. The tiny Princess of Safan, meanwhile, sat calmly on the periphery floor, rocking Morgan back to sleep. Abdullah tried to run toward Hazrael, but no sooner did he move than Jamal's dog seized its chance and got away. It burst out from under the Paragon's petticoat to see a fight in progress. It loved fights. It also saw another dog. If anything, it hated dogs even more than jinns or the human race. No matter what size the dog was, it sped, snarling, to the attack. While Abdullah was still trying to kick his way out of the Paragon's petticoat, Jamal's dog sprang for Hazrael's throat. This was too much for Hazrael, already beset by the soldier. He became a jinn again. He made an angry gesture, and the dog went sailing away, end over end, to land with a yelp on the other side of the hall. After that, Hazrael tried to stand up, but the soldier was on his back by then, preventing him spreading his leathery wings. Hazrael heaved and surged. "Hold your head down, Hazrael! I conjure you!" Abdullah shouted, kicking free of the Paragon's petticoat at last. He leaped up the steps, wearing nothing but his loincloth, and seized hold of Hazrael's great left ear. At this, Flower in the Night understood where Hazrael's life was, and to Abdullah's great joy, she jumped up and hung onto Hazrael's right ear. And there they hung, raised in the air from time to time when Hazrael got the better of the soldier, and slammed to the floor when the soldier got the better of Hazrael, with the soldier's straining arms wrapped around the jinn's neck just beside them, and Hazrael's great snarling face between them. From time to time, Abdullah caught glimpses of Dalzell standing on the seat of his throne under a pile of princesses. He had spread his weak golden wings. They did not seem much use for flying with, but he was battering at the princesses with them and shouting to Hazrael for help. Dalzell's trumpet shout seemed to inspire Hazrael. He began to get the better of the soldier. Abdullah tried to get a hand loose so that he could reach out to the golden ring, dangling just by his shoulder under Hazrael's hooked nose. Abdullah freed his left hand, but his right hand was sweating and slipping off Hazrael's ear. He grabbed desperately before he slipped off. He had reckoned without Jamal's dog. After lying dazed for most of a minute, it stood up, angrier than ever, and full of hatred for jinns. It saw Hazrael and knew its enemy. Back across the hall it raced, hackles up and snarling, past the tiny Princess Imogen, past Princess Beatrice and Valeria, through the princesses heading around the throne, past the crouching figure of its master, and sprang at the easiest piece of jinn to reach. Abdullah snatched his hand away just in time. Snap! Went the dog's teeth. Gulp! Went the dog's throat. After that, a puzzled look crossed the dog's face, and it dropped to the floor, hiccuping uneasily. Hazrael howled with pain and sprang upright with both hands clapped to his nose. The soldier was hurled to the floor. Abdullah and Flower in the Night were flung off to either side. Abdullah dived for the hiccuping dog, but Jamal got there first and picked it up tenderly. "A poor dog! My poor dog! Better soon," he crooned to it and carried it carefully away down the steps. Abdullah dragged the dazed soldier with him and put them both in front of Jamal. "Stop! Everyone!" he shouted. "Dalzell, I conjure you to stop! We have your brother's life!" The struggle on the throne stilled. Dalzell stood with spread wings and his eyes like furnaces again. "I don't believe you," he said. "Where?" "Inside the dog," said Abdullah. "But only until tomorrow," Jamal said soothingly, thinking only of his hiccuping dog. "It has an irritable gut from eating too much squid. Be thankful." Abdullah kicked him to shut him up. "The dog has eaten the ring in Hazrael's nose," he said. The dismay on Dalzell's face told him that the genie had been right. He had guessed correctly. "Oh," said the princesses. All eyes turned to Hazrael, huge and bowed over, with tears in his fiery eyes and both hands clasped to his nose. Jinn blood, which was clear and greenish, dripped between his great horned fingers.
I should have known,
Azrael said dismally.
it was right under my nose.
The elderly princess of High Norland detached herself from the crowd around the throne, felt in her sleeve, and reached up to Azrael with a small lacy handkerchief.
Here you are.
She said.
No hard feelings.
Azrael took the handkerchief with a grateful, "Thank you," and pressed it to the torn end of his nose. The dog had not really eaten much, except the ring. Having mopped the place carefully, Azrael knelt ponderously down and beckoned to Abdullah up the steps of the throne. "What would you have me do now? I am good again," he asked mournfully.